evening, Papua New Guinea, and welcome to a brand new episode of Business PNG for the year 2016. The key to economic and sustainable development lies in empowering the people. Papua New Guineans and Pacific Islanders are agriculturalists by nature. We have sustained ourselves with food gardens for centuries. Joining Marco in the studio tonight are some of the most vocal stakeholders in Papua New Guinea's agriculture sector.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Oxford Business Group Corner. Our subject tonight is agriculture, perhaps one of the most important sectors for the socio-economic development of Papua New Guinea. But unfortunately, a sector has been overshadowed by the extractive industries in recent years. But as the price of oil continues to drop, as we all know, the country is dealing with the consequences of that. So there is a growing sense that perhaps this is the moment for agriculture sector to play, if not a center stage, certainly a much more important role in Papua New Guinea in the future. So in studio with me today, I have some very interesting guests that I would like to introduce to you. And I would like to start with Mr. Brown Bay. He's the chairman of the Rural Industry Council. He's also the chairman of Petromin, and he's a man that everybody in PNG pretty much know. Next to it, we have Ilan Weiss. He's the chairman of and director of Innovative Agro Industries. And last but not least, next to me, I have Alan Bird. He's an agriculturist, private businessman, as well as an advisor to the Minister of Planning, Minister of Planning. I got it right. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. My pleasure. Right before starting the show, we were talking about the fact that Papua New Guinea certainly is not new when it comes to agriculture. As far as we know, farmers exist here 40,000 years ago. That's what anthropologists are telling us. So in a way, agriculture is part of the DNA of Papua New Guinea. And for once, Papua New Guinea is ahead of everybody else in a sector. So that's a great start. Having said that, something got missed along the way, and it's very difficult at the moment to go from subsistence farming into commercial farming. So I would like to understand, first of all tonight, what has happened and what are the main steps that should be taken for this to happen. Perhaps we should start with Mr. Brown Bay. You are the most senior person in this room, so let's start.
I'm not quite sure, but I'm just one of those. Well, I mean, you know, there have been a lot of literature written on agriculture in PNG. Agriculture, as we say, is the backbone of PNG. And in that context, it has been a dominant and, in fact, the survival mode for Papua New Guineans for years and years. And I think what really has happened is that, you see, we have a pattern of development at the moment where the subsistence sector of agriculture contributes significantly to the agricultural sector in PNG. We don't know exactly what the quantum of production is because there is no reliable statistics. However, we do know that that agriculture subsistence sector actually accounts for 80% of the people of PNG. And the fact that women are also, great farmers is not by accident. See, these are practices that have been adopted for years and years. The challenge for PNG moving forward is that we have to change our attitude and thinking so that we do not continue to embrace agriculture as a subsistence form of farming. It has to be developed deliberately as a commercial business and one that promotes and provides future sustainable growth for PNG.
I see. So you're saying attitude is the problem.
That's it.
There is an issue there. Alan, do you agree with that? I mean, you're a person that started a segment of agriculture when it comes to vanilla back in the CIPIC, early 2000. Did you notice what Mr. Bay is talking about?
Absolutely. I think the attitude of the subsistence farmer can be constructive when needed, and it can actually work the other way too. But I don't think that's important. I think you need to understand all the players in agriculture. You've got a large-scale sector, which, I mean, Ilan is part of that. the sector that is visible. You know, you've got your oil palm producers and people like that. And they're visible because they are organizations, and you know, they're visible because the government can tax them. So they begin to show up in statistics. But the 80% that Sir Brown is talking about is, you know, to look at it another way, it's 1 million households. Now these are people who are not banked. I guess the invisible part of Papua New Guinea that does not show up in statistics. I mean, we count them when it comes time for voting, and when we do the census, we actually count these people.
The rest of the time they're in the shadow.
The rest of the time they're, you know, we call them the informal economy, but they're the mainstream, as it were, because they're the majority. So about 1 million households. I mean, that's the best way to measure it. In terms of, like for instance, these are the people that are involved in the betel nut trade. Now, conservative estimates have put the betel nut trade as being worth about 2 billion kina a year. But that's just an anecdotal number. No one actually can put a figure on it, right? But if you sat next to the Highlands Highway and counted the number of buses that are cutting betel nut up and down that highway, you probably count about maybe 300 buses a day. They're not carrying people, they're carrying betel nut, they're carrying mustard there. Okay. So, but that is not measured. The number of people growing yams, sweet potato, you know, cassava, ibica, all of the foods that Papua New Guineans eat, we don't have any data on them either. So again, they fall through the cracks, we don't measure it. And I think when we don't measure it and when we don't see them, and that's the part of agriculture that is actually neglected. I think it's neglected because, one, they don't pay taxes. Two, they don't show up in statistics. So as a government and as human beings, I think we get lazy. It's easier to tax a mining company. It's easier to tax Elan's group. It's easier to tax New Britain Palm Oil, you know, Ramu Agro Industries, because they're visible. Is it easy to go out and tax 1 million households? I think not. So I think that's where they fall off, and we kind of know that everyone accepts that they're there, we call them the backbone, but in terms of the amount of attention we pay them, it's very minuscule.
So it's a backbone that is not visible at the moment. Now, talking about the attitude towards farming, it's something that I wanted to ask you, Ilan, because you, obviously, you're a foreigner like myself in this room, and you're coming from Israel, which is a country that nobody would think that would be perfect for agriculture, but there you are. You're one of the greatest producers in the world. Now, when you came to PNG, you faced off to yourself, you realized there's a new reality. You're present in many countries around the world, but for the first time you came to Papua New Guinea. Did you notice that attitude that people have towards farming is actually good? They do know what they're doing?
Proficient farming in the PNG is not a challenge. You take the PNG outgrower, you give him new technology, you give him new techniques, new innovation, he'll adopt it immediately. And I even go further and say that within 2 weeks' time, you'll even improve on what you're doing. I just want to return back to Alan's point, because Alan has made a really correct point in the sense that they're not only the visible part. I would guess, there are no exact statistics, that they're also the biggest investors in PNG agriculture. I mean, you know, with all due respect to corporate agriculture like us, I think it's, you know, the mother that buys the pig, the farmer that buys the seeds. It's the subsistence farmer in this country that probably accounts to more than 50% of the investment in the sector. As I said, you know, we lack exact statistics for the reasons that Alan mentioned. But so they're not only the backbone of this country, they're also investing in a sector which is essential for this country, and they're also, you know, the most challenged to get access to finance. So whatever they're financing from their own hard work. Right. Commercial financing is virtually not available to subsistence farmers in PNG.
Particularly, Lance saying nothing unique of what we've seen. We've seen this around the world. Perhaps the timing not so good, but it's something that maybe needs to exist, some form of protection. Do you agree with that, or you're more a liberal and you say no protection?
I must tell you, I've been on the forefront of some of the public
outcries.
Yeah. Our concern is that there has to be proper consultations between all parties before, measures like this are introduced. That consultation was never there. And that's why so many questions were raised, and so many people were really angry. But look, we have to promote Papua New Guinea, farmers. That's fine. One thing that the government, the minister, did not explain is the policy basis on which the ban was introduced. And even now, up till now, that has not been explained. What is the policy basis? Is it to protect PNG from the invasion by, pests and diseases from somewhere, like what he said? Or is it to promote the PNG farmers? Or is it both? What is it?
Is the lack of communication, the lack of consultation?
Absolutely. And I totally agree with the points that both Ilan and Alan have made. You see, the ban must only be exercised as a temporary arrangement, and it cannot be imposed as a permanent arrangement, because it should only allow the government or the PNG at large to achieve what it desires to achieve. And that is, if it's promoting local farmers, fine. In the meantime, let's all work together to promote, the farmers in PNG, like Alan was saying.
Right.
That we did not do that.
I see.
Now, the consequence of us not doing that is that we've been given 3 months to prepare, ourselves here. The ban has been lifted for 3 months. Are we sure we're going to get the produce locally? Aren't we going to run into the same kind of problems again?
Well, let's look into this. What's going to be the next thing?
Can I just add? Yeah. There's also one critical point here. See, and I think Ilan made it, but I want to just really highlight this. The client in Port Moresby, the customer who's actually going to buy that produce, is the most important person in the whole chain.
Absolutely.
I am, now, because I'm buying it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, when we disadvantage that customer,
yep,
that customer gets frustrated with those people who are supposed to be, I know a lot of people were really unhappy going to the supermarket and not finding onions, for instance. And they blame the government, they blame the farmer. So everybody gets a bad rep along the way. That's something that should be avoided. Yep. At the end of the day, the farmer actually needs the consumer, about the same. You need the consumer, you need the farmer. They both need to be kept happy. But in this case, there were a few farmers who were probably happy, but there were a lot of unhappy customers. Now, if I was to wear the hat of a customer, and I went into the supermarket and I was disadvantaged for 8 months from getting my favorite produce, whatever it is, and Papua New Guineans do this, they get angry and they're like, well, the PNG farmer disadvantaged me. I mean, you look at B-Mobile suffering now. B-Mobile is suffering because everybody is so angry at being charged outrageous prices in the early days that they're just giving all the money to Digicel. And now you've got a switch in the playing field. Papua New Guinean customers are like that. If you don't understand the customer and you make him angry.
But that's human nature, as
exactly, it's human nature.
I think that leads to the question of competition. And one of the comments from the minister that kind of left me a little bit puzzled was the idea that additional competition doesn't bring prices down and vice versa. Monopoly doesn't inflate the prices. I was a little bit taken aback from that sort of economic point of view. But perhaps in agriculture works like that?
No, certainly not. I mean, I don't want to bet for Ilan and them. When Ilan and them first came on the market, I want to say this. When the Israeli group came on the market with capsicum, we were paying 30 kina for local capsicum at the supermarket. When Ilan and them came out, we were paying 9 kina 95. There you have a clear result of competition. And not only that, they were a Papua New Guinean based company, and like I said, I don't want to bet for them, but these are the kinds of things that if you do everything correctly, those are the benefits that the consumer should get. And the amazing thing was, many people who were not eating capsicum before, we were buying it as a luxury item. They were now buying it daily. So that's the other thing. You end up empowering your customers and you win their favor. And I think at the end of the day, that customer needs to be catered to and be listened to. And I think if you look at it, when the ban was lifted, it was lifted because the customers were getting upset. And I think the customers have a right to get upset when, because they're the ones paying
Absolutely.
the money. They're not getting it for nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of this discussion. I would have liked to last even longer because I can see that we're touching some very interesting issues. But I would sort of like to end it up looking at the future. If I'm thinking also Europe, agriculture is sort of going out of fashion among the youngsters. You know, no, it's like there is almost like a say in Europe that if you don't perform well at school or whatever, we'll send you back to the farm and work. You know, it's like almost like a punishment. You know,
It's the same here.
the same here, probably. It's like everywhere around the world. But I think that's something that perhaps could be changed. Agriculture, it is in fact a sexy industry, let's say. Like it's interesting, you know, like even for young people, you know, like they could work in the farm. It's a beautiful lifestyle as well. Perhaps there has to be also a reshaping the concept of agriculture, because I feel that this country could provide so much within the region. In providing products for growing markets in Asia, but you need also the help of the youngster. You need the young population to be involved. It's something that can be done, you think, to spark that idea into the mind of Papua New Guineans for the future. The agriculture is actually a good industry to be involved with, not a punishment.
No, not at all.
Yeah, what do you think? Go ahead, maybe you.
If you visit Naiman, you see that there are young university graduates operating the farm. You see young women doing a job. Agriculture is not, you know what, the old concept of somebody going with a plow. And modern agriculture can be sexy, it can be attractive, it can be a very good profession, very good career for young people. In Israel, agriculture is an ethos, so it's not considered like, it's not for the delinquent or
Right.
or the people expelled from school. So
It's a sexy profession.
it is a sexy profession, and there's a lot of education around agriculture. There's a lot of science around agriculture. So, agriculture, I think farmers by their nature are innovators. You know, if you look at what they do, for me it is a very attractive profession. And you know, just visit and you see university graduates that are acquiring skills. And you know, it takes time. You need a lot of experience in agriculture because you face different challenges every day. But I see Papua New Guineans, women, I'm mentioning women because they're the best workers in agriculture. There's no woman on the panel, but there should be one, at least one.
Yeah, that's my fault. I'll take the blame for that.
And I see them giving them the key to run the farm within a few years once they gain the experience. So yeah, there are opportunities. There are plenty of opportunities.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Very interesting conversation. Hopefully we'll have another one further down in the future. And thank you for watching, and welcome again on the next issue of Oxford Business Group. And thank you so much.
Welcome back. Amongst the challenges of doing business in Papua New Guinea, there are some striving entrepreneurs who aim to succeed in the various journeys of business. In this Entrepreneur Engaged segment, we speak to Jules Collins, owner of a jewelry boutique in the newly opened wing of the Vision City Mall in Port Moresby. Business PNG visits her boutique to learn about her journey. We present Jules Collins Jewellery.
Jules Collins from Jules Collins Jewellery. Jewellery designer and maker. I studied at COFA in Sydney, and I'm also a gemologist. I've done diamond technology, and I'm a jewellery valuer with the New South Wales Jewellery Valuers Council. I'm originally from Goroka, was born in Goroka, and we lived outside of Mount Hagen. And after having a jewellery shop in Sydney for the last 22 years, I've decided to come back to where I was from originally, and so I have pretty much brought my shop from Sydney all the way up to Port Moresby. I went straight from school and went to COFA, which is part of New South Wales University in Sydney, and I studied jewellery design and making. I particularly loved the designing side of things. I went out and worked for a couple of years for other people, but decided I didn't want to work for anyone else, so I threw caution to the wind and I started at the markets in Sydney originally. It's for the first 3 years, and then I opened my first shop on Oxford Street, and then after 12 years of being in Paddington, I decided to move into the Sydney's CBD, so I moved into a little boutique underneath the Sofitel Wentworth Hotel in Phillip Street in the city. I had a shop there for quite a few years as well, right up until pretty much before I came up to Port Moresby to open my shop. I've loved doing the designing, and in fact I've created a range particularly for PNG of my own design. I've always wanted to come back to PNG, and so I guess I was getting to the stage where I was either going to stay in Sydney forever or come back to PNG, so I decided to come back to PNG, and I've already found Kate, who's a fantastic sales girl. So Kate has just started this week as well. I'd also like to get a PNG jewellery workshop sort of happening as well, so that I can make and finish off pieces up here in PNG. Hopefully all going to plan. You know, I'll have quite a production sort of going hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, depending on how long it takes me to sort of pull everything together. So one of the biggest issues is security. You definitely need to be very aware of where all your jewellery is, and making sure that you keep a regular stock take on everything. Of course, everything to do with jewellery though is quite expensive, because you know you've got your precious metals of your sterling silver and your gold, plus insurance is expensive. Finding great staff who are reliable and trustworthy is always very hard. And I've also hopefully got some ranges which are affordable to everybody. My more range from Australia, which is perfumes and body creams, lip balms, this type of thing. Some of the soaps and the lip balms start at 25 kina, so I think that's a great price range to sort of bring everybody in. And then, going up to engagement rings is, quite an expensive purchase for people. So I'll hopefully have a little bit of a range for everybody. Because I'm a designer, I'm very happy to sort of sit down and design something up within a couple of hours for somebody if they want a special piece. We can usually make things up hopefully within 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how complicated the piece is. And with my PNG range, I've started with just quite a small range that I've designed so far. I've done billams, I've done Goroka baskets, I've done Village Life, which has got some of the animals and some of the huts and things like that. I've got beautiful birds of paradise, of course, but I've done a completely different range, all of my own design, which is like nothing we've seen in PNG before. And I've also done beautiful reef fish for all the people that love diving and fishing in PNG, which seems to be a big group of people. Oh, and tropical. I've done a tropical range, so I've got a beautiful, pineapples and banana bunches and things like this. Beautiful palm leaves and things. So I've done a bit of a different take on sort of lush, tropical, beautiful PNG. I would say to anybody who wants to start a business, I personally think one of the main factors is to do something that you love, because I think to do it well, you're going to be spending a lot of hours in it. And so I think it's important to be well educated in what you're going to be doing and passionate about it. And I think also One of the main things I think in small business particularly is perseverance and being able to plan so that you don't just, when you've had a great day or whatever, you just don't go and sort of spend all of that money, because you can be sure that maybe the next week is going to be a quiet week. You've got to kind of plan so that you can survive through the troughs that are just inevitable, I think, in any business, the ups and the downs, to plan for each day and to sort of look into the future as well of how you want your business to go forward so you can keep growing it. But yeah, I'd definitely say the main thing is perseverance through all the good and the bad times.
And that's all from us tonight. For more business news, if you would like to view this episode again, visit MTV Online at the URL at the bottom of the screen. Or for up-to-the-minute business news and updates, like our page on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at BusinessPNG. Until next week, have a pleasant evening. I'm Leanne Jarari, and this was Business PNG.